Hello folks, Fat Guy Flies RC here, where I'm going to give you just an explanation video on this thing they call expo and dual rates. You hear that, you get into this hobby, you're going to hear that, hey, what's high rates, low rates, mid rates, what's this thing called expo? What do they mean by that? When they say throws, how you get your throws set, what do you mean by that? Okay, well let's start with throws. When they say throws, let's just imagine this is the surface of your elevator. Okay, the back control surface that makes you go up or down in your airplane. When they say how much throw do you have, that's what they're talking about. How far up and how far down is the throw of that control surface. Okay? When they say 100% throws, like I do on a lot of my models, that means it's going to go as far as it can go that's designed to allow it to go. That's as far as it'll go. Okay? So that's an explanation of throws, how far it goes. And then people say, well, what's your throws set at? Well, 100% would be 100%, right? Well, this is where rates come in. Okay? People say, I got dual rates, or I got mid rates, or I got high rates. Well, my high rate, what people normally mean is the highest, the most I've allowed it to go. Some people set their rates or their throw at 100%. Some people set them at 90%. Is that making sense? 100%, 90%. That's their high rate. Okay? And lots of times say, well, I've set up a dual rate or a mid rate, and I only go up to 70%. And they'll assign their switch for, say, their aileron, their rudder, and their elevator to only move 70% of the throw. Or their high rate, 100% of the throw. Or they may say, they may have mid rates. They may have high, mid, and low. So let's say they got their high rate at 100%, their mid rate at 70%, and then their low rate at, say, only 50%. Okay, so that's the throws. That's how far the percentage. Now, and that explains your rates. Okay, that's you're telling your computerized transmitter that in my high rates I want the throws or the movement of my control surface to go 100%. Okay, and then I want my mid rates, if I assign mid rates, to go how far I choose, 70%, 60%, just whatever I choose. And then my low rate would be my lowest envelope that I want, like say maybe 60% or 50%. Okay, so that's how far it goes. And then people say, well, and you can do that to all the control surfaces. Now, to tell you what is the right way to do it is up to you. It's up to your flying style. If on my Valiants, my E-flite Valiants, I fly with one rate, 100% throws, and 30% expo, and that brings up our next, and I do that all the way around, rudder, elevator, and ailerons are all 100% throws with 30% expo. Now let's explain what expo is. Think of expo as like pushing your foot through a sand slowly and then coming up out of the sand. You know your leg is going to go so far in the sand and then go all the way up, right? But while it's in the sand, it's still moving, but it's moving slowly, and then it goes free out of the sand. So you still get the full amount of movement, but for the first so far of a certain percentage of it, it moves slower. Okay? So here's your control surface. Back to our elevator again. If I put in 30% expo, that means that for the first 30% of that movement or that throw of that control surface, it's going to move a little bit slower, a little softer. You're not going to be quite so. It's not going to be quite so touchy on the sticks. So for 30%, it's going to move a little slower, and then it's going to go faster. Now, if I jerk back on that elevator and make it go all the way up, then it's still going to go pretty quick. But at first, the first 30% is going to be a little slower of an action. It's not going to be quite as responsive. This is why when you get a new person flying, you want to have a decent amount of expo, 30 or 40% in your control surface, because any instructor is going to tell you small corrections on your sticks, whether you're a pincher or you're a thumber. on your transmitter. You want small corrections, because a small correction can have a dramatic effect on when you're in the air. So by having Expo, it makes that control surface not quite as responsive until you get to the full arc of that move. So if I have 100% throws and 30% Expo, here's my 100% throw, and then here's my throw. I'm pulling back on the stick normally, just not really fast, just a nice pull, and it's going to go a little slow and then go faster. The first 30% is going to be kind of slow and then faster. So that way, if you really need to pull out of something real quick, you could. All right. Now, I hope that makes sense to you. It's just that percentage that you set, what's in that percentage, as it's rising up to 100% or whatever you set the high number at, then the first part of that percentage you set, 30%, 40%, whatever, is going to be a little slower, a little softer to get through, and then it'll go all the way. So if I set it at 70% throw and 30% Expo, I'm going to go, here's going to be slow for here, and then going up to 70%. So 30% and then 70%. It's going to be a little slower at first, and then it'll arc up. So it makes, like I said, it makes the model not quite so jerky and not quite so twitchy looking in the air. People say, oh, she's twitchy or she's real touchy. Well, that's because they probably need to dial in some Expo. That's just the term you put in some Expo. Dial in some Expo, because lots of these new transmitters, you use a dial to dial that in. So that's a simple explanation of that. So you could, but you got to be careful. You don't ever want your Expo to be so dramatically close to your throws. Now, like I say, unless you're like flying a jet, and a jet elevator doesn't need much movement because it's going so fast, and that pressure, that air is going over that control surface. The smallest little touch is going to have a dramatic effect. Okay, so if on a jet I may only have 60% throws, and I might have 40% Expo. Even though I'm getting the full range of movement, it's going to be a little, not quite so dramatic in its movement, but that's a jet. Typical aircraft, though, usually for my flying style, what I use 100% throws and then 30% Expo. Now, if my airplane is a regular airplane, you know, high wing, low wing, and it's a very fast, sporty plane, then I might do, my high rate might be 90 or 80%, and then I might have 40% Expo. That way it's not quite so touchy because it's going so fast, it's going to be so responsive. Okay, so it's all in how your flying style. So usually, like most Horizon Hobby, most of your high wings and most of their planes are going to tell you 100% throws, 30% Expo. And then they're going to tell you your low rate of 70% throw and 30% Expo. And you can assign that to a switch. Now, everybody has different transmitters, so I'm not going to pull out my DX9 and say, hey, here, it's hard to show anyways. But you can look at it, and it's not hard. You just assign it to it. If you ever assigned a switch on anything, you can do this. If you want dual rates, okay, then a two toggle switch. If you want 3 rates, you want high, mid, and low rates, then you get a 3 switch, and then assign your first one all your high rates, your second one your mid rates, and your third one all your low rates. But like I say, that's entirely up to you. It's your flying style. Most of my planes, the only thing I do is 100% Expo and 30% or 100% throws and 30% Expo. Excuse me. That's normally what I do. That's just. I hope this is explained to you, dual rates and Expo, and what that means, and high rates and low rates, and what that terminology is, and what throws mean. When people hear say, "What's the throw?" That means the deflection. How far, that control surface will move. And that Expo is how softly it moves at first. And that way it's easier for you as a beginner, or even experienced, you want to have a nice smooth flight, dial in some Expo. Okay? And that's pretty much it on Expo and dual rates. I can't really think of anything else to explain it. Just, that's just the way it is. Well, anyways, there you go. That's dual rates, Expo, and throws, and what they mean. And thank you for watching. This is Fat Guy Flies RC. God bless.
Goodbye.